Hey, I'm Nick DiMatteo, and welcome to Music is Not a Genre, the interview edition. Every week I talk about music, I break it down, I make connections where none seem to be, I bust myths, and I connect all of that to my music, to other people's music, and to other things in the world completely unmusic related. Thank you to all of my patrons over at Patreon. Thank you to anybody who has subscribed to my YouTube channel or who is listening on any of the podcast platforms. Please feel free to share any of this. If you know someone else who's as obsessed with music as I am or as you are, I really appreciate that. I appreciate all of the listening and watching and clicking and sharing and everything. Let's get right to it. With me today, my guest is Rich Berta. He is a musician, writer, and performer on That New Life and many other things, as I know. The new album that's out everywhere is That New Life, which we're going to be talking a lot about later on. Rich, how are you today?
I'm fine, Nick. Thanks for having me on.
You're welcome. Yeah, it's good to have you. It's been a while since we've seen each other. I don't want to, spoiler alert. We did or had played quite frequently in a couple different bands and different styles. But it's been a while because of what's going on in the world at the moment. But why don't you, to the best of your memory, tell people how we know each other?
Well, I couldn't tell you the year, but a few years ago, maybe 5 years ago, we started doing some Beatles gigs together. And as you know, we've both become part of the Beatle world, the Beatles circuit. And through some of those same groups we played, with various lineups, we've done other gigs, a little bit of jazz, a little bit of, I don't know, whatever people have asked for. We've been kind of called upon and done our best to have a good time playing different styles. We did some 80s gigs. I bet 90s are coming next. Who knows? We've done a few things over the years, though. But it started with Beatles music.
Yeah, that's right. It's a prefab four, and weirdly enough, I actually first played with them back in 2007 for a little bit, and that things changed. I had another kid, etc., and then that kind of went away. And then the leader of that group, Anthony, contacted me again in 2016, and at the time I was playing keyboard. Previously I played keyboards for the band, but he needed a bass player, and that's kind of how we ended up meeting each other. And yeah, mostly Beatles, but yeah, jazz, country, 80s, just general 60s music and 70s, stuff like that. It's been great, and I'm constantly impressed by your level of musicianship in everything that you do, but particularly with the guitars and the vocals. And what I'd like to know, and what I think the people listening at home, the audience, would like to know is a little bit about you, your story. Can you tell people where you come from, where all this music comes from?
Well, I come from a town called Ossining, and it's about 20 miles up north from the city, New York City. I grew up here. It's not, cool enough town, nothing special. I still live here just by chance. I've lived here my whole life except for college. I went to New Paltz for college. The music, hard to say where it comes from. I mean, we had a piano growing up in the house. I'm the youngest of four boys, and I guess no one else really used it. So I guess they had to justify having the thing. So they made me take piano lessons. And I say they made. I enjoyed it. No, I didn't fight it. I don't know how much I didn't love it. I was probably about 9 years old, but I did. I didn't hate it. That's good. I didn't hate it. I stuck with it. I maybe didn't always do what I was supposed to do for the lesson, but at least I was sitting at the piano constantly. And I guess that was probably pretty important. And then for me, when I think I guess officially in ninth grade, I got a guitar because that I really wanted to do, and that I became obsessed with that. So that, like, nobody was making me do that. I sought that out, and I loved it right away. I couldn't wait to see how all this music I was listening to, how does that come out of that instrument? And that was all my desire to do that at the time. So I guess that's the beginning right there. Yeah.
Yeah, and so what was the music you were listening to that got you, intrigued enough to want to pick up a guitar and figure it out?
Um, Early on, I know Metallica was a big thing for me at the time. I guess all my brothers, but especially the one, like I said, I'm the youngest of four. The next one up was kind of a metalhead, and I'd hear this great noise coming out of his room all day, and I'd like kind of borrow the tapes from him and listen in there when he wasn't in there. Like, God damn, how could that be a guitar? I'd see a picture of a guy holding a guitar. Like, how the hell could that come out of that? And I eventually I would slowly find out how. But that band comes to mind right away. I was into the Red Hot Chili Peppers back then. Those are two, as far as guitar goes, those are two bands that I was really into before I even had a guitar. I was like, oh, this sounds great to me. I'd love to know how that happens. Before that, I didn't really have many albums when I was a kid. I mean, I listened to whatever was on around the house. Like, well, it was hard not to hear that metal blaring out. And I was a big Nintendo guy, as I guess most people my age were around that time. And I know it might sound dinky, but I got even into that music. I guess if you're playing those games long enough, you sit there and you hear that music over and over. It has to get in your head. The greatest, but yeah. So Chili Peppers, Metallica, and Nintendo.
That's an awesome combination. Yeah. What's funny is I swear I just read an article about the history of video game music. I have been looking it up because I stumbled on this collective that does, they call 8-bit music, where they're just basically replicating the sound of video game music, but as, pop bands or what have you, or progressive bands. And they talk about how, revolutionary Nintendo was for video game music because of even though they were only able to really do two lines of melody and counterpoint, they somehow fleshed it out to the point where it was a real song. And because of that repetition, it just stuck in the head. And then, the decades pass and it becomes orchestral and just well respected until maybe 20 years ago, orchestras actually started performing it live in concerts. And that to me, what I love about that is it shows that you never know where the next music is going to come from or where music inspiration is going to come from. Do you feel like there's anything in what you do that actually, because I've heard you play and I certainly have heard some of your, metal influence, and even kind of there's certain intricacies in what the Red Hot Chili Peppers do that comes out. And I want to talk way more about your playing and everything and your music. But do you think any of that video game music somehow seeped into your technique?
Maybe to some small degree. I mean, when you asked before where the beginnings were, and that was that was we're talking like the almost the 80s here. So that was a while ago. But I suppose that if that was my foundation, I imagine something's in there. Just to be clear, I don't think I mean, I guess if anyone watching this listens to that album that came out last year, they're like, oh, what the hell is he talking about? It doesn't sound like Metallica. It doesn't sound like Nintendo. Like, I want to return this thing. I didn't hear one Nintendo song on there. So I don't know if it's seeping in there. I don't know. But by the way, that was great that you were able to make me sound less ridiculous by saying, oh, don't worry, Rich, there's a whole article about how Nintendo actually was music, Rich. Don't worry.
It's the art of bullshit means you can legitimize anything. So, that's it. All right. So then, and this is, I find this interesting anyway, because to be able to go back that far and say, well, this is what I was listening to, and I think we can all do that to an extent. Yeah, that doesn't mean that so long ago represents what you do now. And I just listened to your entire album on Spotify, and yes, I can attest. It doesn't sound like video games. It's great, and we're going to make sure we have links to that so everybody can listen to it. But so then that being the case, after all that development period, what did you do next? What happened next?
If you're talking like after, well, we were talking really early there, that led up to the guitar, even getting a guitar, which is when I started to get really passionate about music. Let's see, so that put me in ninth grade, like I said, so in high school. I guess at that point, this is 1993. I mean, it's hard to overlook like the whole Seattle movement. I was a big Alice in Chains guy at the time. If you asked me back then, that probably was, again, another band that you're going to be surprised to hear me say that I loved. Smashing Pumpkins. That's one when I look back at some of the bands I got into around that time, that's one to me that every time I listen to them, I feel like they sound better and better to me. Some of the other ones, I mean, maybe this is true for everyone. You might go back and look at what you used to listen to. Like I'm looking at my CD tower over here and be like, I can't believe, like almost a little embarrassed. I can't believe how much I used to love that. But for some reason, that band stands out to me. Smashing Pumpkins, that's a band to me that like, wow, I can't believe I didn't love them even more. And I liked them right away, but now like at this rate, they're going to be my favorite band in 20 years at the way they're climbing my ladder.
Wow.
So I forget what your question was. Yeah, so I guess around that time I got into some stuff like that. A little. I can't start naming bands. It's hard. I mean, that's a pretty mainstream thing I just named. A couple of like lesser known groups. I don't know.
Yeah.
I got a Sigur Rós shirt on right now. There's no way that you can see this, but I'm out of Iceland. I don't even know if I'm saying that correct. Sigur Rós out of Iceland. Big fan of them. Now we're jumping ahead to like 2000s, but
yeah, go for it.
Yeah. So I can sit here and like list bands or whatever, but I guess I just got into other stuff, and I don't even know if that stuff pops up. And I can imagine it somewhere subconsciously. It's in the stuff we write. Must have some kind of like, it must show the influence somewhere. I would imagine. I don't know. I like to think it's pretty original. Of course, it comes from somewhere though.
What's pretty original?
I like to think that the music that I write, I like to think that it's unique. I really do believe it is. I mean, I'm trying to bring something new to the world. Nothing's ever going to be complete. We're all hitting chords, whatever. But like, I like to think I'm always trying to find new ways that I haven't heard before that are like, wow, that's actually something I would really want to listen to. I've never quite heard that before. Like if I catch myself, if it sounds like anything, I've like, oh God, that kind of sounds like that song, that I just like don't even want to use it then. And it has happened. And when that happens for me, I think I have to assume it happens subconsciously. Like, oh, that little progression was in my head, or that little melody was in my head because I have heard that. It has happened. But when I do that and I realize it after, I'm like, oh, damn it! Like I'm just not even gonna use that now. So it's I'm sure that it doesn't mean that everything I end up using is completely brand new and nothing like that's ever happened before. I'm not saying that, but I guess that's what I strive for.
Well, and that's, I mean, I think, it's weird because I think to some degree everybody strives for that, but there are different degrees of striving. So when I listen to your music, there's no question that it's you in the sense that, sure, I can hear similarities to other bands, but I'm not going to mistake you for somebody else. Like there's a uniqueness to what you're doing that is clearly coming from a place of kind of organic creation, and wherever that influence comes from, it doesn't even matter. What's funny about having a little piece of music that reminds you of something else is what I've discovered is in the writing, but especially in the producing, and then even more so when other people hear it, is that people like us have such a knowledge of music that the thing that's familiar to us, there might be 10% of the people who hear it will be like, wait, that sounds like something else, and nobody else is going to know where it comes from.
That's true.
And the way you combine the ideas you get, no matter where the sources are, whether it's truly like inspiration or a subconscious memory from something, the combination of all that is what creates something new. And that's what I hear in what you're doing.
That's great to hear. Thanks. I had this is going to backtrack a second here.
Yeah.
One time I wrote a song for this girl I used to play with years. I don't know if you can plug her name. I wrote a song called After a While for this girl, Kat Spina. She recorded this like 2 different times on her album, whenever. I don't even know when this was, but the first time I recorded was for a demo, and the guy who was engineering it said, he's like, he listened to it, and I wrote the music for it, and it has a couple of those progressions that I like to use. And the guy said, I'm going to say one word to you, Metroid. That's a Nintendo game. And I went back and like, I actually went back and played Metroid. I'm like, did I rip off Metroid? And like he said, I was like, I can't believe you're saying that. I loved the Metroid music when I was a kid. I never tried to play any of that music. Did it subconsciously end up in there and like that? So one guy talk about 10%. That's like a 1 in a million that a guy said something like that.
Exactly.
Did I rip off Metroid? I don't know.
Right.
I don't think so. I went back and played, and I didn't hear. I was like, my song's not in this damn game. But anyway, you just said something about the 10%, how very few people are going to even pick up on things like that. Well, occasionally someone might even go deeper and and call out your past.
See, we found the connection, and it, and I find that awesome because it's not like that guy saying, "Oh, fuck, the whole song is no good." Like there's the way you can the way we create music, and by we I mean us, but also anybody who's not doing like far out avant-garde 12 tone, whatever, is like you said, there are no new chords under the sun, and there, in a sense, no new chord progressions or anything like that. But how it's put together makes a difference, even if there's a little part that reminds somebody of something else. They may be conscious of it or not, but that's going to give them their own little hook into the music. That
Yeah,
sense that it's part of a greater family of music.
and I do think that's a great thing. I mean, just to be clear, I was when that guy said that, I was kind of flattered. I was like, wow. I was like, I was. It kind of blew my mind. I was like, well, yeah, I did play a lot of Metroid growing up. I beat the game. I'm not going to brag about my Nintendo. I beat it though. I mean, I wish we don't have time to get into my resume with Nintendo, but it's impressive. I beat the game, so I know the music. So I've obviously heard it for hours as a kid. So it shocked me that he said that, and I wasn't like, damn, no, man, these are in a different key. I wasn't. I'm with you on that. Like it was just cool that he said that. And you're right. It's never going to be brand new, but you bring something new to the world. Kind of going back to the way you and I met with the Beatle doing the Beatle gigs. Even within that, I always say to people, because a lot of people do these tribute gigs where they're trying to do exactly what was like almost act like you're just do exactly the way it was played.
Mm-hmm.
I guess that's all fine, but my thing against that, and I've done that, and you and I have actually done that together. It's fun. Don't get me wrong. My one thing against that is that I feel like when you do that, you're bringing nothing new to the world. But the thing about writing music, and even if you take the liberty of covering someone else's music and doing it your own way, at least you're bringing something new to the world. So, and now when you write music, my God, that's when you're really bringing something new to the world. So even if it does seem like derived from anywhere, and even if in some cases it might be obvious when it is, it's still something. It's still new. It's still new. Now, again, I'd like to think that it's not that it is pretty unique. I guess everyone is striving for that, but it's always going to be something new. It's always going to be unique to some degree.
Yeah, I mean, you and I really align on that because yes, I think original creation is like the pinnacle of bringing something new, but there is absolutely a way to bring something new if you're doing someone else's music. My favorite phrase, which I'm constantly repeating, is move the conversation forward. There's always a way you can take something. I mean, if I'm hired and they say do a cover of these songs, I'll do them. But if I'm creating a cover tune, and I released a bunch of music last year, and there's like I think six covers out of the 30 odd songs, and three of them were Beatles songs. But I'm only choosing covers that I think I can actually bring something new to. If it's a song where I'm like, oh, I love it, and I'm going to play it exactly how it sounded, then what's the point of doing it? It's that idea of moving the conversation forward. And when we're playing with the Beatles, and other things, but particularly with the Beatles, it's funny to me how you're hearing chords with like major ninths and stuff like that would fit into the song just as well as what's actually played there, or you'll play a lick, or forget it, like the harmonies that you're stacking that don't exist in the actual original recording, but they stay true to the spirit of the song and they bring something new to it.
Yeah, I mean, why not? Why the hell not? I mean, not to mention to make you guys giggle, especially Adam. I know I'm not going to start mentioning other friends here.
Right.
Nick and I play with this other guy who always giggles. Like if I hit a funny chord, I look at him and I superimpose some chord under the chord, and I usually know that it's not going to like ruin the song, but it's not really in the song. And it makes this one guy that Nick and I play with sometimes fall down laughing. So that's reason enough right there. But yeah, I also like the sound of it. I also like.
I know what it is. I'll tell you the one that stuck in my head because it's more recent is the progression that you threw into the song "Walk Like an Egyptian."
All right. Nice, yeah.
Which had a kind of almost, there was like is jazzy, but it also had kind of an early mid '90s feel to it too.
Oh my god, yeah. Oh wow, now I want to do an '80s gig again just for that. I forgot about that. I would have wanted to anyway, but now I want to a little more because of that.
Seriously. Look, and I've played with guys who've done it all different kinds of ways, and there's always the excitement to me. And look, I'll be vulnerable for a moment. There's an excitement to me knowing I'm playing a gig, in particular with you, because you keep the music alive that way by never just settling for playing something rote, unless we're just trying to get through something. And then you know, your no matter what your demeanor is, you know, externally, your enthusiasm is always clearly there. And considering how, you know, crazy life can be, the fact that we're able to get together and do something that we love that much and to be able to share it is, I think, an amazing thing, and do it, you know, dozens of times.
It's a true gift. I mean, I love playing with you too, man. I mean,
Uh,
I get to simplify it. You just sing awesome. Like I wish I could sing like this freaking guy.
Oh man, thank you.
I mean, but I mean, yeah, I think it shows. It's hard to hide it when we're up there. It's easier to hide it on some songs than others, you know. But like overall, it's hard to hide the joy. We're lucky we get to do that stuff, and we're talking about like doing even covers right now. But yeah, exactly. We're talking about putting our own spins on things,
Yeah,
which putting an original element to a cover, which it's a thing. That's a thing. You know, you didn't write it, but you can change it. You can make it your own. In a way, you know, you might make I guess you try to make it the way you'd want it. You know,
yeah.
or one makes it the way one would want it. You know, like that's what we're all doing. Sometimes it's like, yeah, just do it the way it was. That's, you know, that's fine. I do that too. But you know, if you see an opening, like, hey, we could do this here, do that there. Why the hell not? Right?
You know what, that brings up a question, because this is something I've always wondered if anyone else encounters this. When you're listening to music, either in the memory of it, like after you've heard it, do you hear something that's not there, and you either thought it was there but it wasn't, or you knew it wasn't there but you wish it was?
I definitely have some. I mean, I definitely imagine parts that aren't there, and then often end up singing them. If it's a song I end up hearing multiple times, if a song I like, and I hear it more than once, you know, I know I've probably seen you do this too. I know a lot of people do this. Like you end up adding a harmony. Like, oh, I do wish that were there. I wish, you know, and sometimes I guess, this is less common, but I've listened. I mean, it's probably most common with songs you write, where after you're done with it, you're like, damn it, I wish I did that differently. I wish that part didn't happen so many times. Or I wish I shortened that part or did that again. Of
Oh,
course, you're always getting criticized, and it seems like it becomes instantly obvious. Damn it! Like now that this album is out, oh, wish I did all that different. But
yeah.
sometimes I listen to songs like, maybe I can't think of an example right now. Where like, damn, I wish they did that part more times, or I wish if I wrote that, I would have sung this part over that again. Um, Even this, here's a strange example that comes to mind. Katy Perry's Firework. No, not Firework. Katy Perry's Teenage Dream. If you sing that chorus, let's go all the way tonight. Again, at the end of the song, you have a real. They really could have had a hit with that one, Nick. If they had sang that chorus over the big ending, if they could have had a hit. I'm sorry.
She could have been famous. Yeah, you know.
Katy Perry could have been someone that not only you and I know, but that other people would know about. If
Yeah, I don't know if anyone else would know her. Yeah,
why I said the name, like everyone's gonna know who that is. This friend of ours could have had a hit.
exactly.
Sometimes you know I'll hear something where like, oh, if I had been producing or had been in that band, I might have suggested this, and I might have gotten shot down. Who knows? But it seems like a no-brainer. Damn, they would have. Everyone would be like, yep, that would have been better. Who knows? Or they would have been like, no, Rich, we don't think so. I'm like, oh, okay. But yeah, so yes, I do hear things that I wish were different, that I would have done differently personally, and the probably most common thing is adding a harmony.
Which, yeah. Now, would you say, this is kind of an easy question? Would you say that that experience of hearing things that you wish were there is something that informs your own creation?
Um, I bet at the very least subconsciously, I bet it does. I mean, it's not, I don't take notes like, okay, next time I have a song that has a chorus only once, only twice, but X this and that happens, I'm gonna make sure I succeed where they failed. I'm I'm not making notes like that, but I guess to some subconscious degree, at the very least, that you know, you might end up in a position writing a song alone or with someone else. We're like, oh, you know what? I personally like when this happens. I like when these two things happen together. When if they can, why not have them happen together? they might blend, they might create a harmony, something like that. But no, I can't think of any specific. I think any specific thing where I learned, okay, I'm not going to screw up like they did, even though we're obviously talking about somebody who didn't screw up. I don't want to end up like them.
Yeah, geez, yeah, horror. And I see what you mean. I think it is more of a subconscious thing. Because I'm always wondering, what we listen to plays such a part in what we create, and sometimes it could be something that we heard, 30 years ago in a store once that stuck with us so strongly that we have, and then completely forgot about the experience, and then it pops up in some song somewhere we'd never be able to identify what the source is, but it's like these little atoms of music that come from all the different, molecules and science, that somehow come together in a different way in the music that we create. And like, for example, you mentioned Smashing Pumpkins. I wouldn't have thought of that, but listening to your album, I can definitely hear an influence there.
I bet. Yeah, I bet.
But with the other band that I don't, you probably know the band, but I don't know if you've listened to them. But the other band that I think it had a bit of it sounds a little like was Silver Sun Pickups.
I know a couple hits by them.
And I've had a couple of their albums.
I heard them and thought, like, God, that girl sounds so hot. And well, there is a girl in the band, but it's not the singer. But yeah, I like the songs I've heard. Yeah,
and there's a kind of there's a meatiness and a groundedness to your music, but there's also there's an ambience to it. And bands like the Pumpkins, who have intricacies, like you said, the more you listen to, the more you pick up on, and how much of how virtuosic it was, and the Sigur Rós or Ross, same thing there. What they're able to layer into their music, and how it is kind of ambient, and there's a feel to it, and kind of a wash of sound, but it's got weight at the same time. And I can hear that in everything that you're doing as well.
Cool. I mean, yeah, I'm definitely into. I wouldn't be surprised if some of that's seeping in more so than the Metroid thing. I was not surprised. I was far more surprised by that Metroid thing that got played back then than I was by that. Like, yeah, of course that's in there. Sigur Rós. I hope that's in there. I mean, I love that stuff. A little bit about them. That's a band that I'm surprised. On paper, it's surprising to me that a band like that is so like great. One of my favorite bands of this like century, I guess you could say, millennium. Because one thing about them is that they don't change keys. They stay in one key. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that at all. But that's one thing that I kind of like to do. I don't make a point to do it, but I find myself doing that. So it's surprising to me that one of my favorite bands almost literally never changes keys within a song.
That is a good observation. Yeah, I just listened to, I forget the name of the lead singer, but he's doing some new project, and he's got an orchestra with him and everything. And that same thing struck me, where there's this kind of interweaving of elements that build or diminish and then build again, but they're either there's no key change, and there are very few chord changes even.
Yeah. They make them count, though. Yeah. They make them count. My God.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're right. I mean, there are pieces of we're talking about That New Life, by the way, and I'm going to put links up to not just, well, there's a page that has anywhere it's streaming, and also on Bandcamp, but there are elements of those songs that have that same kind of, you're in a pocket and you're just floating, and that's great. But yes, I hear. In fact, I think it might have been the first song. There was a key change in there that jumped right out at me, and I'm like, oh yeah, this is music from somebody who knows music.
Well, thanks. Yeah, it's it's funny, like the key change thing, I don't really seek out to do it. I don't know, it kind of just ends up happening. I don't know. Maybe it goes back to that thing like trying to do something. I guess when you do change keys or you have these progressions that don't stay within one key, you have a better chance of not being, you know, of not sounding like something else.
That,
Then it's like then it becomes one in a million instead of one in a billion.
yeah,
Or,
yeah, exactly.
now I'm only one in a million, but I don't want to be this one in a billion. I want to be one in a million.
Right.
Even one in 1,000, dare I say.
Yeah, say it. Damn it. That's right.
So,
It, that's a great point because there is, and I love bouncing between these two ideas. It is, it is easier in some ways to stay interesting if you're constantly changing, whether that means within one song or throughout a career.
mhm.
But there is a different challenge to stay interesting when you're hardly changing at all, like
True.
like Sigaros or like I think, and someone else that may have a different opinion. I don't know why this guy came to mind, but John Prine. I don't know a lot about his music. I got into it a little more last year when he died, but what I listened to from his 70s work to his 2000s work was all pretty much the same kind of singer-songwriter stuff. But he brings a depth and a lyrical quality to it that keeps it fresh every time because it's coming from an organic place. It's not about him repeating himself so much as he's found his pocket, he's going to stay there. And that to me is an amazing challenge. I've never been able to stay in one place for very long, partly because I don't want to repeat myself, but partly because I'm a little ADHD when it comes to music interests. And do you feel like in what you do, because I've only heard this one album, there do you get to a point where you feel like you need to add a new element or make a change, or have you found a pocket that you like to stay in?
I guess I don't really think about that. I mean, I'm not sure if you mean within one song or like song to song, year to year.
Both.
But I
Yeah.
guess the answer is probably the same either way. That I don't really think about it that way. I just go with what I want to hear, and let's say in that song. Let's say in that song. So I guess that right there tells you the approach. It's just song by song.
Well, that's
You know,
great. Yeah.
it's song by song. It's like try to make this song the way you want it, and then the next one could be different, regardless of if that next song could be on this same album. It could be 5 years from now. It could be whatever. It could be with written for another artist. It could be written for somebody else. But it's just try to make that song the way you'd want it. You know.
That's great. I have a real respect. I mean, music, whatever, I'll have facets of music, but for the song as a work of art, that to me, whether you are writing, performing, arranging, producing, I always feel like the end result is best when everything serves the song.
Yeah.
You can be the greatest guitar player, singer in the world, but if you're flying off at a point and you lose the thread of the song, well, then you're just kind of showing off. But if you're doing that stuff within a place in the song that fits, then everything works better.
Yeah. I mean, you would like to think that most people take that approach. I guess there's always compromise to some degree. I mean, if you're working within a group, this project was. I mean, I wrote the songs, but I brought in just two friends who played with me, like the bass player and the drummer, and then a third friend who was the guy who like co-produced and engineered it. And I valued their opinions too, but we never like fought over anything. And I guess they felt that like I would occasionally ask like, yeah, especially on the sound production, like, do you think we should do this or that? And I valued their opinions, but there was never any. I wouldn't say ever had to compromise, but I guess in some people's cases they have to compromise within a group. I guess if they disagree with other members in the group and they're about whatever, like a part in the song or who knows what, a harmony, who knows what. And then there's the whole you might have to compromise for like God forbid like a record label. I guess you could say that's a good problem to have. That means you've sort of been paid a lot of money to do it, but they might, a producer might make you. I've never had this quite happen to me, where they might make you change the music, and that's got to suck. I guess if you're guaranteed money, I guess that should make it worth it. But I wouldn't. That wouldn't sit too well with me though. And I like to think I'm pretty flexible too. I am, but I wouldn't. It is nice to get to do it the way you want to do it though too.
Well, especially when it's your own music, and I've seen what you bring to covers, and there is a point at which where you're like, all right, they want to hear it this way, that's cool, but I'm also going to add this in, and I've felt that whether it's paid work, even creative work, you do whatever you want. I think that's the way it should be. But for paid work or work that's done under contract or something, at the very least, I like to take a one for them, one for me approach. Like if they want this, all right, that's cool, but then I'm going to do this over here, and this is going to be how I want it.
Yeah, and I mean, come on, I mean, it's not like it's going to be offensive. We're talking about like changing a couple notes here and there or whatever, like maybe extending a part, maybe even changing a chord progression. But I don't think anyone, like, even if they're paying for it, it's like, first of all, fuck it, they already paid. And anyone who's thinking to hire me or Nick, though, we will do what you want, though. If anyone listening right now,
Absolutely, exactly. Yeah, just put it, write it down, note for note, whatever it is.
once you give us that check, no, we what I'm saying is it's still gonna sound good. I mean, no one's gonna be out there like, even if you got some purist in the crowd who loves that song, the original. I mean, that's the biggest risk you're taking, is that some guy in the crowd might, I really wanted to hear it the original way. Well, guess what? You can go do that later.
Right. Just put your headphones.
It'll sound exactly. Go listen later. It'll be exactly what you wanted to hear.
Yeah. I had an experience a few years ago where I was working with a producer, and it was so interesting because it's the first time I had ever worked with someone who felt like it was their project as much as mine, and that their input mattered as much as mine did. And I bristled a little because I was so used to doing things just on my own and answering to my own voice. And on the one hand, I learned a lot. I learned, wow, I didn't hear that, bass line in that song. I'm so glad you suggested that, or whatever else it was. But on the other hand, there are songs from that project that I'll do live where I'm like, all right, I like how I did it, but I'm going to perform it my way. And it's totally fine either way, and no one else knows the difference. It's all, it's how passionate we are, how much this stuff matters to us.
Yep, exactly. There's no right or wrong. I mean, yeah. Get back to collaborating though. I mean, I do kind of miss, because I'm constantly like coming up with whatever, like a little thing I recorded on my phone, like a little idea and melody. I got all these like loose parts. That's how a lot of songs for me start. They start as these loose parts that maybe one day it just clicks. Oh, that could go with that, or like, oh, those just belong together. Or sometimes it might feel a little forced, but you can find a way to adjust the tempo or whatever to get these two parts to fit together. But sometimes I wish that I kind of miss like being in an original band where you can just show up with parts and jam on them. I haven't done that in a while, in years actually. Like bring in these parts and like jam, and actually, I welcome. Sometimes I'm like, I don't know where I want to go with this, and like maybe someone else will be like, oh shit, like that's better than I would have expected. That of course can happen. I fully realized that someone else could have a better idea, or I just had a loose part that this could be. Oh my god, this could be like a gem here, or something I would consider a gem, and I wouldn't even have thought of it that way, or like So I do miss that. Like so, it's not like I always had. I do miss other people's collaboration like that in that sense. Eventually, I guess I could by myself find a way to put these things into songs, and I guess I have. But with all these loose parts, I would love to get together with I mean, maybe you and I can do it sometime, Nick. Just get together. But, hey, let's play these chords, see where it goes. Like just see what the band element. I haven't done that in a while. Like when we recorded this thing for That New Life, I just showed those guys the songs. By the way, they didn't. Those two guys you hear on there, they barely heard that stuff, and that's what and they still did great on it. So,
oh yeah.
Now, even just to get together with them again would be great. Just to sit down and like actually jam stuff out before. Okay, listen to it. Okay, let's record a couple. Okay, that's on the album.
Yeah. It sounds like they have the skill for that, and your willingness to be open to knowing you don't have all the answers. To me, that's the difference. Like I marvel at a band, and there's so few bands like this. Like let's say like U2, has been around for over 40 years, never changed personnel once. And whatever issues they've had personally, professionally, they come back together. And I feel like it's because they're bringing what they do best to the mix, and they find out how it all fits together as a band.
Yeah. I don't know too much about them, so I could be wrong about this. I think they're one of those bands that if you were to check, that they share the songwriting credit equally, like 25% each.
You might
I
be.
could be, I think so. I don't know them too well. I
Yeah.
know that the Chili Peppers do that. I know that Radiohead does that.
Hmm.
Uh,
Yeah.
by the way, big Radiohead guy. I don't know if that's like kind of goes without saying. I think isn't that just understood that I don't know. I should have mentioned them at some point. Like, and I'm a fan of that band. Anyway, like I think they share the writing credit. For them, it's five guys split equally. It seems like the bands that do that like don't split up. Then it's back to our Billy Corgan, Smashing Pumpkins. It's just his name. Can't seem to stick with three other people to play with him. Who knows if that's why? That might say something about him. I don't know. But it seems like bands like that, and maybe they really do collaborate to that degree where they feel like they should all have the names in there, or maybe they just don't want to hate each other. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I mean that's a great example. The Billy Corgan, is that you hear that, and the thing is, it can work well both ways. If you're this, person who hears everything, and the only way you can get out of your head is to make sure it's done exactly that way, and you're a genius, then your music's going to be great. And that's that example. And then the Chili Peppers or Radiohead, where they're all coming together and creating something together, is the other side of that. And look, I think both work great.
Oh yeah,
You
so
know,
do I.
yeah, it's been a lot of years since I've done the collaboration thing too. So maybe we should do something together. That would be cool.
Next time hey, maybe we'll push the next time we get asked to do whatever, we'll really change the songs. We'll just completely not even play the songs. We'll play focus on the
Exactly. Great, great. That,
doesn't even walk like an Egyptian. Was is like, no, you gotta. It's in there.
it's
It's in there.
right. It's like if you took the sheet music and just did this to it. That's what we're playing.
Only happen after they've already paid them.
What's that?
This could only happen after they've already paid. And we
That's right. That's where once you've got them, they're at our mercy. That's the beauty of being a performer. They assume they have the trust that you're going to do what they paid you to do. But once you've got that microphone, and you're plugged in, who knows what's going to come out. And why is that a bad thing? Okay, so here's a question. You were I haven't done so. This is my eighth or ninth interview in this series, and I like talking, as you see, about the overall the breadth of music and just whatever pops in your head. But I haven't done a whole lot of talking about actual songwriting. And what's great is we both do that, and you've already brought up things in your process. And one of the interesting things you said is that you're often not really thinking about, well, I need to add this, I need to do that. So you're creating a song, and if it works for the song, then you've done it right. It is there. I love that you said that there are loose parts that may not go together, that now and then you find a way to fit them together and they create a song.
Mhm.
Do you feel like there's anything on your new project where that happened?
uh, let's see. Almost no. So for me, I never sit down like, oh, I'm gonna write a song today. I just like find myself just making little parts up, and if I like them enough, like, oh, I should record that on my phone. By the
Mhm.
way, I lost the phone. The phone died. I lost probably what would have been another album's worth of songs, but it's okay. I'm gonna make other ones. I'm sure they're in there. They were just like little bits, ideas. A lot of them I remember. The ones I forget, well, I don't remember what those were because I forgot them. They were probably. I bet I like them all. But usually, yeah, I'll have a loose part. Oh yeah, you asked what on that album. There's a song called "Grow Back" that was. I almost wanted to call it like two separate sections. It's the second song on the album, and the end, like it kind of has to slow down to go to the ending there. And I was like, oh, does this sound forced to go to it? And I was like, yeah, you know what? Screw it. I said, hey, worst case, we'll just call it like 2 songs. We ended up just calling it one song.
Mm-hmm.
Like maybe give it like a slash mark, like call it like this slash this, or just whatever. Just give it a separate name for the second part. I don't know. That one, if you listen to it, that's like a longer song. That's like it's not that long. It's like 6 minutes. Like halfway through that song, it kind of like hits a chord and like slows down, and then it goes into like what becomes the ending. There's one little thing that like I don't think it was like forced in, like that where the melody to the ending part like got quickly sung in the first part in a different key, so it's kind of like a little foreshadowing. But those two, yeah, there's a song called "Grow Back" where like the second part is very separate from the first part, but I like to think it worked. It kind of just hits a chord and slows down. Nothing crazy.
Yeah.
But those are definitely 2 separate parts. I bet every song on there was like not written in one shot. It was like, oh, I had this chord progression, I had that chord progression. I can't remember though. I don't really remember writing the stuff. Just kind of like ends up on my phone. What else is on there?
You do most of the work on your phone then?
Not when I say phone, it's like a little like voice recorder. Just like it might as well be a little handheld like tape recorder.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah.
Yeah. Just like to have the idea. And then I put them together and then make another like little phone recording of the whole thing. And then I showed it to those guys, and then next thing you know, they recorded it like on a real in a studio.
Man, that's awesome. Where do you record?
Like those songs that we're talking about, like that album.
Mm-hmm.
Friend Tom Seguso, I guess we should say names on here. I don't know why he should be happy in doing this. Tom Seguso, a good friend of mine, drummer. He lives in White Plains, New York, like pretty close to here. He's all set up at all times. He's a great guy, great drummer. As you can tell, like learns the songs pretty damn quickly. Because we showed up there and showed them to him. Like I showed him the bass player, then we went over there and showed him to him. And kind of like he wrote a couple things on a chart. And we played through them. Like what you hear, these are like 2 or 3 tries on these songs. It's not like we were there all day. Wow. That guy's good. Tom Seguso. His shit's ready to go at all times. His drum set's mic'd up at all times. Go in there, he's ready to go. Everyone's I recommend him highly. So we did the drums and the bass and a lot of the guitar. Like the 3 of us just laid the songs down. I sang like a scratch vocal just to keep the place. Mm-hmm. I mean, I ended up singing the stuff over after, but a lot of the guitar got kept too from there. And then another good friend of mine, Dino, who lives 3 doors away from me in this apartment complex in Ossining, he's set up to do the rest of it. And he's a great musician too, my friend Dino Cavelli. We've been friends for years, and like we jam. We always say, "Oh, why don't we make an album together?" And then finally, I was like, "I think we might actually do it." So I brought Tom sent the recordings, the tracks over to him, and then we sang the rest. He has a keyboard there, and like added the other guitar over there. I would just walk over there. We do like an hour session here and there. It was spread out over like the course of because we would take we'd go like months without touching it, but like it was like these little hour sessions that we bang stuff out. It probably could have been squeezed into like 1 week. But instead it was stretch out over time because everyone's busy. But whatever.
Sure.
Yeah. So It was those 2 friends, Tom Seguso, Dino Cavelli, who have home studios. That's where we did it.
Nice. Oh God, when you find a good musician, especially somebody that you can trust, it just makes everything so much easier. I couldn't tell that those were just a couple of takes on there. I mean, that's not, and some of the stuff is pretty straightforward, but not as a whole. You've got some stuff in there that you need to know your shit to be able to play it. So that's impressive.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, he jotted stuff down. I was like, yeah, shit, is he gonna remember that part? And I guess whatever he was writing down, I guess he's a pro. He knew whatever he was writing down made sense to him. And then we'd go through it and like, oh, he did it. And I'm telling you, like it was a few shots, and of course he. Like anything you do, I wish we had another crack at that one. Of course, he's saying that right away. Yeah. When those guys heard it, they didn't, and none of us knew what it was going to end up sounding like with everything on there. Like if I showed you the tape of us, the 3 of us jamming at his house, it was like this little basement, like a little garage jam. And then I sent him back, hey, look, we added this. Check out, we added strings to one of the songs. He was like, holy shit! Like, I wish I had another crack at playing that. I didn't know this was going to become like a real song. Like, yeah.
Right. Sorry. Oh man, that's fine. Yeah, it's like you said before, you never feel like everything's 100% finished. You go back and listen, you hear like, I could have done that,
Yeah, you could always do it better. But yeah, you know what? We're gonna do another one then. We'll do another one.
Right.
And then we'll bitch about that one the next day.
Yeah, exactly. Or you do, so many artists are doing now, I think, because the older artists who want to reclaim the rights to their stuff, but they don't have, the company owns the recordings, they just re-record their tunes. And often they'll do it pretty much exactly like the original, because what they want is they hope that people buy that stuff instead of the old stuff so that they actually get the money for their own creations. But sometimes they'll throw new things in there because, like, oh, now I've been playing this for years. I know what I really want it to be.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you find that playing? Have you ever? Well, have you played? Have you had a chance to play any of this stuff live?
Uh, there's a couple of songs were like a look had been around for a couple of years, so that one "Grow Back" I played that at some songwriter thing in Austin here. I got that one out live. The title track, I guess, it's the title track of the band. There's a song called "That New Life."
Yeah.
I did a version of that one time. Not a lot though. I might have done not a lot. No, so very little, very little. I like this year. I plan to play some of these songs out. Though, I mean, even if it's just me playing it, I could always do some kind of version of it, like a stripped down version. If we can get, whatever the gig might be, if I can get a group playing behind me, that'd be cool. But I
Yeah.
guess at the very least, I plan to go sing a few of these myself.
That's intriguing. I have the same plan. It's been years since I've had a full band back me up, and this is the year. I don't know when it's going to happen or where, but it's going to happen.
Nice.
I
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
Do you find that when you play a song live that you've written but you haven't recorded yet, does it tell you more about the flow of the song that might shape it in some way?
Yeah, I think yeah, I mean, you probably get I would recommend doing that, which I didn't do with most of these. I mean, I think most bands would probably do a better job of recording a song that they had played live together for sometimes years,
Yeah.
because they might change. It'll probably change over time, and then those little things that you end up wishing you had done differently, you could work those out in advance live, and then you can bitch about different ones later.
Right,
But
exactly.
you're probably like a lot of the things that come to mind for me, like, damn, I wish had done that differently. I bet if I had done these live, or if we had done them live, or even if the things that personally I would have done differently, I probably would have gotten the wrong ways out of my system live, and be like, instead of putting them on the album,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
whatever. Yeah,
It's so true. Yeah, that's what makes it so hard right now. It's so much harder to play live in this circumstance to work things out. But I agree. Back when recording meant you had to pay good money to go to a studio, and there was no home studio to do it at, or there was, but it wasn't going to be, you know, radio ready, whatever you would call it these days. You took the time to perform because you didn't have maybe you had to raise the money just to go into the studio to actually do it, and that process was great. And there is a sense of kind of rushing. I do a lot of home recording, rushing to finish something because you know you love it and you want to get it out. But if you haven't played it live yet, you're going to miss an element or two.
yeah,
What I'll do often is I'll just I mean, I play a lot of streaming shows, but if not, then I'll let a recording sit for sometimes 6 months and go back to it and find that, oh God, this song was missing a complete bridge, or this needs to change key, or whatever. Just kind of fresh ears,
yeah.
you know.
There's a lot to be said for that. I mean, I guess again, listening back, you know, we did. It's not like we didn't. We did listen back like before mixing everything. So in that sense, we got to mix. I'd say the mixing there were like not really any regrets there, but yeah, if you're talking about adding another part to a song, though, yeah, that's the kind of thing you would notice. You like, oh, listen to this song like 5 times now, like, and every time, like, it doesn't end like, it ends like shit. I wish that something else had happened there, and then it's not too late to put it back in.
Yeah,
Yeah,
which is great. And the thing is, it's not too late to do anything. Like there's a very well-known artist who put out an album. I'm not a fan of his because I think he's crazy, and I'm not going to mention his name because politics. But he put out an album and then put a completely different mix of the album out the following month or year or whatever it was. Because why not? You hear something else, especially when you have control over what you're doing. And there's not a company telling you you've got to have a finished product and this will be the definitive product for the next 50 years. Then
yeah,
just go do it again.
all not. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Do you? Oh, this is what I want to ask you. You're also a teacher, right?
yeah.
So how has that experience been? I used to teach. It's been a really long time since I've done that for many reasons. And do you feel like there's anything what is some significant thing that you like to teach your students as far as how they approach music?
Um, I guess personally, when I have a beginner student, I generally start people off roughly the same way. I mean, I'll cater it to them to some degree, but I think it changes more and more as the time goes by. Like they probably start I start them roughly the same way. You know, if it's an adult, they might. I mean, for example, if it's an adult wanting to learn to play the guitar, I might not. I'll ask them, "Do you care if you don't learn how to read music?" And a lot of times they say they don't care, and I say, "Okay, if it were a kid, I'd feel obligated to teach them how to read music
Hmm.
because what kid wants to be in like the jazz band in school or go to college for music, and then he took lessons with me for like 6 years, and like, oh, you don't know how to read music? Like, who the hell was your teacher? But if it's an adult, like I'm like, look, I can teach you how to read music, but you'd rather learn how to like this play what you want to play, right? So that's a big difference right there. Um, Kind of forget what the question was, but what was the question?
Something significant that you kind of pass on to your students about how to approach music, or
Well, so again, for whatever reason, piano is usually based more on like on sight reading. So I tend to like just have them learn songs by reading them. And at some point, sooner or later, I'll like let them know that they can take liberties in how they perform these songs, like kind of like you and I have talked about today, the way we even approach playing other people's music.
yeah.
Like sometimes a kid says, "I like it better that way." I'm like, "Okay, we're supposed to do it this way, but when you've mastered it this way, I will absolutely let you. We'll even write it down your way because I encourage you to do things your own way." Uh, and with I guess this could be true for whatever reason. For whatever reason, more people read on piano. I have a lot more guitar students who don't read, especially if they're adults. I mean, it's mainly the adults, or even if it's a kid, like they learn how to read, but like we tend to like learn more by ear or by reading like chord charts. And
Mm.
I encourage with them too. I encourage them to. I show them how they can put their own spins on things, and I I say the same thing I said to you. Like that it really is great if you can put your own twist on something. You've brought something new to the world. Um, sometimes I catch it like if, I have some students that are really into that, like the way that you and I are, and they'll be, oh, like look, I learned that song, but look what I added in. Like it like makes my day. I'm like, oh my god, like isn't that great? Like wasn't that great that you added that? Like that sometimes I genuinely love what they added. I'm like, wow. And more importantly, they do. I tell them, wasn't that great? Like, look, you took a thing that was already great and you made it even better because you thought of something else. And they're like, oh, and sometimes some of them, I'd say a lot of them might not, might some appreciate that more than others. But when one of them does, it's pretty special. I mean, like, oh, okay, this kid might go on to write music, and as many of these students of mine have over the years. I'm not going to take credit for that, but I like to think I at the very least encourage them, remind them that's a thing. You could write a song. Oh, look, I showed you these chords. Start messing around with those. Put them together. You might, if you maybe you'll find something you can record it on your phone, like I do, or on your laptop if you're on the next level.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, look, they may have gone on to create anyway, but to have someone that early on be not just that encouraging, but to teach in a way that allows for that openness has got to make an impact on them, because we get so hung up on we or people, people get so hung up on process that if you don't do something one way, that's the tried and true trusted way, that you're not going to achieve a certain result. But there's, 1,000 million ways to achieve that result if you're
absolutely.
open to it. So that's
Yeah, that's true in almost everything. I mean, my God, I'm a big baseball guy. The fact that you see a guy who has like a really unorthodox windup or batting stance or whatever, but he got to the big leagues. What does that tell a kid? And maybe you shouldn't. Doesn't mean everyone should try holding the bat like this, but like it goes to show that if you found some unusual way of doing something that works for you, don't be discouraged from doing it. I mean, I managed to throw baseball analogies in like you wouldn't believe, Nick. So there's one right there. But like if you I mean, even right down to the technique of playing the instrument. Like if you might have some weird way, a drummer might hold the stick some weird way. I don't know, but like, hey, it sounds good, so don't fight it. Like don't feel the need to conform. and right down to the technique, or like, I like hitting this weird chord. You know, if you like it, then you then do it.
Were you always that way, or was there a point early on where you were, kicking yourself for not doing something right, quote unquote?
I don't remember kicking myself too much. I mean, I don't know if my technique is so perfect. I don't even know. I probably should know better as a teacher. I think I'm doing it kind of right. Again, what the hell's right? But I think I'm doing it like the way, the way that most people would teach. I don't know. But no, I never really kicked myself. It's liberating, to know that. I guess maybe I was lucky enough to realize that, like, you don't have to do. If you're writing a song, you do whatever the hell you want, and it's liberating. So I guess I want to remind people that, of course, you could do it. If you think that progression sounds nice, then that's it. Nothing matters more than that. And you work with that, make that work.
Damn right. That's the best kind of energy to bring to the world, and that's the best way to, move the conversation forward.
That's it.
Keeping it open like that. We've only got a little bit of time, and before I hand it off to you for any last thoughts, I have one very important question. Do you still play Nintendo?
No, you'd think if you knew me in '88, you'd swear that I was going to go on to become even more of a legend than what I did. I retired a little bit young. I don't have a Nintendo anymore. Somebody gave me this, like, whatever, it's in the closet over here, like a box that has like all these Nintendo, even like Sega Genesis. And I was playing it again for a while. A lot of those games are not as good as you remember them. It's like a lot of those bands you liked. The Metroid is the Smashing Pumpkins of Nintendo. That shit's even better than you thought it was.
Ah, yeah. Remember that.
Who could forget?
I'm gonna look up that song, whatever song of yours, see if I can hear that Metroid.
Okay, yeah. It's called After a While. I doubt you'll find it.
After a
I'll
while.
tell you, if you get me in front of the Tetris screen, Nick, I'll blow your mind. It's probably my strongest skill in the world.
Whoa.
I challenge anyone, anywhere.
Oh, that's it.
I'll beat you. Then they play me like shit. No, you're not gonna beat them. I wish I had a more useful skill. If I could transfer Tetris skill into something like a money making thing, my God, it'd be the equivalent. Like, it'd be like the equivalent of Steve Jobs. I mean, that's bragging too much. It'd be something. It'd be. I'm goddamn good at that game, Nick.
My son is a gamer, and he's into like Rocket League and Fortnite and all that. And there's one thing you see this from where we came from, and now there are people making millions of dollars playing video games.
Oh, not Tetris though.
No, not Tetris. Okay, all right. Yeah, that's a good point. So is there anything else that you'd like to throw out to people about anything at all before we wrap up?
I guess I'll just like to thank them for being with us. I can't, we said already more than I ever imagined I would say. The questions were great. I think your questions were that great that I can't even think of what to add.
Gee, that's perfect. That's great.
I'll think of it tomorrow, just like a song. I'll think of it tomorrow. I'll think of all these great things we should have said.
Okay, we'll put a little addendum. Just write whatever you want. We'll throw it in there. Yeah, it's been great. I'm so glad we had a chance to do this. I hope that we actually get a chance to play together soon in the same room. That would be awesome.
We will.
Yeah, I think we will too. And thank you for spending all this time with me and with everybody else.
My pleasure.
And thank you to everyone out there for listening. I hope you take the time to check out the links that I've included here for Rich's music. It is well worth the time, and wherever you listen. And please feel free to share that music with everyone you know as well. And as always, I appreciate your support, and I will see you next time.